Do you want that Leica Q look without having to buy a Leica Q camera? Stay tuned. Leica Q this, Leica Q that. All everyone seems to be talking about is Leica Q cameras. First it was Peter McKinnon, then it was Pierre Lambert, street photographer if you know him, and then I started talking about Leica Q cameras. What about if you're a Leica M shooter or Leica SL shooter? If you bought the Leica Summilux 28mm on its own, it's going to cost you around $8,000, whereas you could just pick up a used Leica Q for what, around $3,000. Not sure the exact exchange rate. It's £2,000 in the UK. You could get the very affordable 7Artisans 28mm 1.4 Leica M mount lens. I was intrigued to see whether I could get the same results from say the SL or the M240 as I can with my Leica Q. So I reached out to 7Artisans and said, please could you send me the lens to test? Can you get that special Leica Q look from a cheap Chinese lens? I'd say maybe 90% yes. And rather than just tell you, I'll show you with real example images. So stay with me. First, I'll take you to Poland where I was doing photo shoots in Poland with models. Next, we'll head closer to home and I'll do a photo shoot outside testing the lens on the SL camera. Following that, we'll head into London and I'll show some side-by-side testing Leica Q versus the SL and the 28mm 7Artisans lens. Then we'll do a model shoot. Then we'll come back to the studio and have a final roundup and decide whether or not this lens could be a cheaper substitute to the Leica Q. This cheap Chinese lens may be better than you think. Hi there, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If I forget to mention it at the end, I have done a detailed written review for this lens, so click the first link in the description to see the photos shared in this video, some of them full res and side-by-side shots against the Leica Q with like sliders so you can compare. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and feel free to subscribe if you like model photography, Leica, gear reviews, lens reviews. That's mostly what we do on this channel. Okay, so before we head to Poland, let's just take a quick look at the lens. First impressions, it is a big, heavy-ish lens for a Leica M mount lens. It is going to be front heavy on your Leica M mount camera, or especially the smaller Leica CL camera, but it balances well on the SL. It's got a 52mm front filter thread. It's got a close focus distance of 0.7 meters, and it's maybe around the same size as the Leica Summilux version. It's got a lot of glass in it, so it's going to be a bigger, heavier lens. Maybe stating the obvious for regular viewers, but this is obviously a manual focus lens, rangefinder coupled, so it will work with all Leica M cameras. It's got a nice smooth focus and it's got one-stop aperture clicks. Let's now head out to Poland and join me for one of my model photography trips. So yes, as I said, I'm using the Leica CL for this shoot. So, well, for all of these shoots with multiple models. The Leica CL is an APS-C crop sensor camera, so a 1.5 crop makes this a 42mm equivalent. Obviously that's not a perfect way to test the lens on a crop sensor camera, but it gives you an idea of the rendering, the center sharpness, the contrast, that type of thing. This photo is shot with daylight only. I like how the light's falling on the model's skin. I'll probably maybe want to edit out the background. For some of the other sessions I did record full videos for Patreon. So if you want a fly on the wall view of how my 2-hour plus shoots go in Poland with some of the Polish models, head over to Patreon. There's a link below. There's like maybe 100 videos, of which maybe 70 are model related. Once I was back in the UK, I was keen to test the lens on the Leica SL full frame camera. So I arranged a shoot with a local model. You may recognize this girl from the Voigtlander SL lens video. Feel free to check that out. There's a lot of nice photos in that video shooting this girl with a 90mm lens if you want to compare to how she looks in this video with a 28mm lens. So for these photos, we're shooting in her parents' garden. I use a sunbed and put it up on its end and then put like an old dust sheet over it to make like a bit of a background. And then went in closer to get some kind of half body shots and to blow out the background. You can actually get bokeh on a 28mm lens, believe it or not, as seen here. Shooting at the light, you can see a bit of flare, and you'll see more of this as we head to London. With that, let's go now to London. Okay, so for these photos, I got an early morning train for one of my workshops, and this tube stop, I really liked the symmetry. There wasn't many people at that time in the morning, and I liked the lightry and the lines from the escalators. So I decided to shoot the SL with a 28mm 1.4 7Artisans lens against the Leica Q. Had both lenses set to 1.7 approximately on the 7Artisans lens, and I tried to take similar shots, both handheld, both at the same ISO, shutter speed, and you can get pretty similar results from both cameras. If you're not aware, the Leica Q is actually a 26mm-ish equivalent, so the Leica Q photos look wider than the SL plus the 7Artisans lens. Both of them rendered reasonably similar. And once you apply one of my Mr. Leica presets, I could barely tell the difference. I think the Leica Q is a little bit sharper, wide open, and maybe similar sharpness and maybe around f2 on the 7Artisans lens, but in real world testing, you can't really tell a difference. again, check the blog because I have posted side-by-side photos with a slider. First link in the description. It'll be easy to tell which is which and whether you can see a difference between the two lenses. Also in London, I was asked by two girls in the Nine Elms area, which is like a fancy tower block district, the old Bastley Power Station area, very nice posh apartments, to do like a two-girl shoot in their new apartment. So I headed over there and I had various lenses with me. I also had the 90mm SL lens, so you may recognise one of the girls from that video again. This time I had obviously the 28mm lens on the SL, and the 28mm was really useful width because for an apartment, a 28mm is quite useful for indoor shots. And they had a really cool balcony, so for the balcony again, 28mm meant I could get her full body and some of the balcony and then obviously the background as well. So one of my favourite shots on the shoot was the girl pretending to read her magazine, lying on the sofa on the balcony with me standing on a chair overhead trying to get slightly down angled shots to see like the tower blocks and things around her because they're quite high up. I can't remember, 30th floor or something like that. I actually got locked in the lift for about 5 minutes, so luckily she came and rescued me. And then lastly, another trip to London, this time when I was testing the Leica Q2 monochrome. If you've not seen that video, watch the last video. It's the last one I posted. You may recognise this girl from that shoot because I was shooting the Leica Q, the Leica Q2 monochrome, and the Leica SL with a 28mm 1.4. I just forgot to tell you in that video to keep things simple. So here we have now the Leica Q against the SL plus 28mm 1.4. I was actually almost preferring the images from the 7Artisans lens, strangely enough. I really enjoyed shooting it up at the sun and getting more lens flare on the 7Artisans lens than you can get from the Q. It gives a really nice kind of cinematic look, I think. Sometimes the lens imperfections could also be its strengths, and that's why sometimes a very perfect lens can actually be quite boring when everything's just too clinical and too perfect. So I was loving the lens flare. I was shooting the lens wide open for some shots and around f2 for maybe other shots. And I think this is one of my favourite ones. This is just raw plus the Leica SL colour preset applied, and I really like the colour palette. You can definitely see the improved contrast from the Leica Q lens compared to the 7Artisans in these kind of outdoor open space photos, but that said, you can get really nice results from either setup. Okay, so heading back to the studio, can I recommend this lens? What is my verdict? I'd say you can definitely get probably 90% of the look of the Leica Q lens with the 7Artisans lens. Obviously you don't have autofocus, you don't have macro mode, you don't have all the other benefits that come with the Leica Q, but it means you can then get a similar kind of wide yet shallow depth of field vibe from your Leica M camera or Leica SL camera or any other full frame digital mirrorless camera that you want to use, adapting to Leica M out. Is it perfect? No. Is it a great creative tool? Yes. Less micro contrast than the Q, slightly softer than the Leica Q, more flare, it's heavy for an M out lens, and the colours are pretty crappy unless you add a preset. The out of camera colours look pretty rubbish. You can see here's a raw file unedited, and then here's the same raw file with the Leica SL preset pack applied. If you want the presets used in all the photos in this video, again I'll put a link in the description below. So in terms of recommendations, who can I recommend this lens to? I'd say mostly probably like SL users, SL, SL2, SL2S, because it's a biggish lens, so it balances nicely on the bigger camera. Obviously M out users can use it. On the CL it's probably a bit too big and a bit too heavy, but it will give you a nice fast 42mm equivalent look. And bonus tip, if you are L mount user, so SL, CL, use the 7Artisans close focus adapter, which will then allow you to focus closer than 0.7 meters, so you can get really nice shallow bokeh type shots. And what about the price? I nearly forgot. $436 or £419. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Feel free to subscribe. As always, a massive thanks to my patrons. And if you want a slightly smaller 28mm f2 lens, watch this video next, the Voigtlander 28mm f2 version 2.